I actually come to diversity and inclusion through the law. So way back in the 90s, I tried and won the first class action under the Americans with Disabilities Act. So I represented 200,000 hearing impaired residents of the city of New York against New York City to get them 911 services. So that should give me a little credibility, right? And then I sort of felt like I was more a part of the problem than the solution. I wanted to pivot to a more global career to begin with. And so I started doing international mergers and acquisitions. Honestly, it was an excuse to experience different cultures. And while I was at the negotiation tables around the world, I started seeing these patterns of success and failure that had more to do with the cultural differences than they had to do with the actual skill of the people at the, at the table. And so I started keeping track of them, and of course the patterns would bear out differently, let's say in Tokyo than in, wherever, Paris or New York. But nevertheless, they were patterns. And so I kept track of them, thought that they'd be a book someday. But then at a pivotal crossroads in my life, I decided this is not a book, this is a business. And so I built a business, and I built it actually as a single mom, because by that point I was going through a divorce. And we built it to a presence in 65 countries, and then I sold it to Ernst & Young and became a partner there. But, and I'm going to give you just sort of a little bit of a segue into my own inclusion story. So I grew up with a dad who basically, just to give you an idea, I came home from middle school one year, and I was in tears because my girlfriend said, "You're out of our group." Just like that, with no explanation whatsoever. That was my first experience with exclusion. And I'm there crying and crying, and my dad looked me right in the eye and put both hands, like one hand on each cheek, and said to me, "Denise, anyone who doesn't like you is not worth knowing." For whatever reason, and I'm not sure if it was because I just needed to hear it at the moment, I took that so seriously that literally from that day on, I never allowed myself to even feel excluded. And if I did, I just sort of, said, well, it's their problem and moved on. But what was interesting is that building this business while I was a single mom, I felt excluded again. I felt like I wasn't part of the best moms club because I was always being pulled in so many different directions. And I also felt like I wasn't part of the perfect executive club either for the same reasons. And I thought, well, that's self-imposed, right? I did that to my, I'm the one that's saying that I'm not included, and I sort of moved on. When I sold the business, it became sort of an interesting experience, not so much what was happening in terms of exclusion, but what wasn't happening. And without getting into too many details in that regard, I decided that I was going to dedicate my life, at least in part, to helping women to advance through senior leadership. Because we have this rocky road, this period, of middle management where women either self-select out, or they get married, they have kids, they leave, and then they don't have the skills or tools to come back in without lagging behind significantly with their male counterparts. So all of this really became part of my life journey. And then, what I didn't want, because I'm a business person, right? I'm a business analyst and a business consultant. I was not interested in let's everybody play well in the sandbox, although it's very important. And probably the conscious capitalism gods will come down and strike me dead for saying that. I still feel like we have to make a business case. We have to show that this is an economic imperative, right? So that no matter what presidential administration we are dealing with or whatever life's events are, we can say, look, this is practical. This is economics, right? But when you have a whole bunch of diverse people coming together, whether it's cultural diversity or gender diversity or what have you, without an actual plan or orchestration or support of those diverse voices being heard and sort of coalescing into something that can lead to progress, you end up with a problem, right? And if we don't have discernible goals and accountability, and then we're not able to demonstrate that we're moving the needle, and we get stuck, right? So if I'm saying, you know, inclusion can move the needle on innovation, I better have some metrics in place that demonstrate that.